Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose, and we do have a lot to cover today. It has become a little bit of a feeding frenzy out there for studio acquisitions, as we do have some major acquisitions to talk about today, including Square Enix selling off some of their key studios, including some of their most beloved IP. Truthfully, I have no idea what Square Enix is trying to do here, and after looking through all the details, I'm almost on the side of Square Enix got fleeced here. So we'll talk about that one a little later on the video. Plus, Warner Brothers might be trying to sell off some of their studios as well, so you have that happening. And then on top of that, there are some rumors that Nintendo might be releasing some big games this holiday. So make sure to stay tuned for all of that as well. But per usual, if you do find yourself enjoying the video, go ahead and hit that like button below. Plus, go ahead and hit that bell notification and subscribe button as well. That way you can keep up to date with all of the latest gaming news. Other than that, though, let's just go and get right into the news, starting off with a game that I'm very happy to talk about today, being Psychonauts 2. Now, Psychonauts 2 had a very interesting development cycle, as this was originally started as a Kickstarter project. Fans have been wanting a sequel for years and years, and we finally got our chance with that Kickstarter. But then after a couple of years, Microsoft actually acquired Double Fine mid-development. And this kind of changed things for Psychonauts 2, as Microsoft actually helped fund this game. They gave them an extra year to polish things up and just make it the best that they possibly could. And it looks like they have been heavily rewarded for doing just that. Yeah, you can actually take a look over here where a former art director over at Double Fine stated this on Twitter. "My leadership resulted in shipping Double Fine's highest rated and best selling game to date. Nominations awards include, not limited to, Game of the Year, Best Art Direction, and Adventure Game of the Year." So this is interesting because I think we already knew that Psychonauts 2 was a critical darling. It is one of the highest rated games for 2022, but on top of that, this does reveal that Psychonauts 2 is the best selling Double Fine game to date, meaning that it has at least sold 1.7 million units. That is absolutely fantastic, and you also have to consider this is despite Psychonauts 2 launching directly into Xbox Game Pass. So big congrats to Double Fine, Xbox, and really just the fans of Psychonauts. I know you all had to wait for just such a long time to finally get that sequel. I was a part of that group, so I completely understand, but it is just so great to see Psychonauts 2 be as successful as it has been. Really, I think that Psychonauts 2 actually deserved more Game of the Year awards than what it got, and I actually view it as one of the best 3D platformers of all time. That's kind of how I feel about this game. It's insanely creative. It's got a great story. The gameplay is fun. It's got a good sense of humor. Just everything about this game was so phenomenal. If you haven't already played Psychonauts 2, definitely do yourself a favor and go check out that game. And for those that have played Psychonauts 2, here's the hoping with this game having so much success that we get a Psychonauts 3. Next up here, since we are on the topic of Xbox IP, a new leak did make its way online regarding the next Forza Motorsports game. So what's happening here is that over the last couple of years, Turn 10, they've mentioned a few things about the next Forza Motorsports game. It's supposed to be a pretty big evolution compared to the last Forza game, and the only console that they have mentioned so far is that it will release on the Xbox Series. However, thanks to this new leak, there's now some speculation that maybe this next Forza game will actually release on the Xbox One as well. Now, this is thanks to some pictures posted over on Reddit claiming to be from an Xbox One build from around last July. Per usual, when it comes to any type of leaks, I'm not going to post any type of images, I'm not going to post any videos or anything like that, but supposedly these images have been verified and are legitimate. So that has led to a lot of speculation on whether or not this next Forza Motorsports game will be a cross-generation title, or if it will instead release only on the Xbox Series as we had previously believed. And really, I think that the best thing to do here would be to just kind of wait for the official announcement, which I imagine is coming rather soon. We do have the Xbox Bethesda showcase next month on June 12th, so I wouldn't be overly surprised if we get a full-blown reveal for the next Forza Motorsports game there, where we get some more details. Based off of this leak here, though, I don't think that this is really telling one way or the other. Yes, they might have tested it for the Xbox One, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to release for the Xbox One either. I mean, games get tested on all types of different hardware to see how they'll run leading up to the release, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they'll release on said platform. So I don't think that this is necessarily a 100% definitive answer one way or the other, but nonetheless, it is an interesting discovery. So let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Do you think that the next Forza Motorsports game will be released as a cross-generation title, or instead, do you think that it will release only for the Xbox Series? Let me know in the comments below. All right, so we need to go and start talking about acquisitions. Of course, we've talked a lot about acquisitions here in recent years, especially over the last couple of months. I mean, Microsoft, they're trying to acquire Activision Blizzard. Sony, they just acquired Bungie, and then we had the other tens of acquisitions that it seems to be made every single month. But the last couple of days has been pretty crazy. This all kind of started with Warner Brothers Games. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, but it was all just kind of encapsulated this morning when it was announced that Square Enix is selling two of their studios, being Eidos Montreal and then Crystal Dynamics. And yes, this does include all of their IP, such as Tomb Raider and Deus Ex. Yeah, they sold all of this off to none other than the Embrace Group, which, by the way, it feels like they're just kind of building up an empire. They have 124 total studios after this acquisition, which is just absolutely crazy. But what makes all of this just so mind-blowing is the price that they got all of this for. Now, keep in mind, we've seen a lot of these acquisitions here in recent years, and the prices of these studios, it just feels like they keep going up and up and up. I mean, you have Bungie, the studio behind Destiny. They sold for $3.6 billion. The Borderlands studio, Gearbox, they sold for $1.3 billion. Zynga, what was that, like $12 billion or something like that? So if you were to guess how much Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, the Deus Ex IP, Tomb Raider IP, and all their other IP, if I were to ask you how much that would cost, what would you guess? Actually, go ahead and pause the video and go ahead and post your guess in the comments below. And then when you're finished, come back up here and listen to what I'm about ready to say. Okay, so I'll go and give you a moment. All right, you ready? All of that sold for just $300 million. That seems laughably low for a market that is on a feeding frenzy for these studio acquisitions. How in the world did Square Enix not make more money off of this? I feel like Tomb Raider alone is worth $300 million. I just don't know what Square Enix is doing here. But it gets even worse than that, because if you actually hear the reason that they sold Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal, well, according to an official statement, Square Enix said that the deal will let it focus on investments in blockchain, AI, and the cloud. Just what gamers wanted, right? Wrong. This is just unbelievable. Again, I don't really know what Square Enix is doing here. I can understand them trying to offload some of these studios because it was very costly to maintain them. Apparently, they were also getting a low return here in recent years as well, so I can kind of understand Square Enix wanting to offload these studios, but at the same time, only making $300 million by selling all of that, and then on top of that, making the excuse that you're doing this to invest in blockchain out of all things. I mean, come on, Square Enix. Really? It is what it is, I guess, but with the size of this acquisition, of course, there's going to be some questions as well. One of which is with Crystal Dynamics. Are they still co-developing Perfect Dark? And it was revealed today that yes, they are. They are still indeed co-developing Perfect Dark, so that will not change at all. Square Enix also revealed that even though they are offloading some of their Western studios, they are going to continue to work on some other Western games, such as Life is Strange, Outriders, and Just Cause. So even though it looks like they are making their way out of the West, they do still have some Western projects as well, so do keep that in mind. There's also a lot of speculation right now on whether or not this kind of streamlines an even bigger acquisition of Square Enix just as a whole. There's been a lot of rumors circling around Sony here recently, so that has been in the rumor mill, but for the time being, that's just kind of it. It's just rumors. There's not really anything concrete to report on as of this moment. If something interesting does end up happening, though, of course, I will let you all know. That's kind of the thing, though, because it feels like nothing is really off the table anymore. It feels like the rules have changed here in recent years with Microsoft acquiring Bethesda. They're also trying to acquire Activision Blizzard. So there has been a lot of speculation on who's the next big publisher to be acquired. We have been hearing some rumors here recently that there's some interest in Ubisoft, but now there's also something else happening because it looks like Warner Brothers Games could be next. Okay, so this one is coming from Imran Khan, which is pretty well respected across the industry, and he stated over on Twitter, couldn't get enough confirmation to actually write a post about it, but hearing a decent bit of chatter this week about Warner Brothers Discovery shopping their game development studios around. Interested parties include EA, Take-Two, Microsoft, Sony, Tencent, NetEase, and PUBG Corp. Warner Brothers Discovery wants to sell studios and license IP, supposedly. Now, this is not the first time that we've heard about this. When Discovery first announced their merger with Warner Brothers, there was a lot of discussion on restructuring and what was going to happen next. Are they going to keep their game division, or are they going to simply sell them off? And here, based off of this report, it looks like that they might actually be looking to sell them off after all, though interestingly enough, that's only the studios. It does appear that they are trying to keep the IP and just simply license those out. So that's where this becomes a little bit more of a tough buy, because even though you're going to get a lot of talent here, there's a lot of talent within Warner Brothers, but at the same time, you're not necessarily going to get the IP. And for a lot of publishers out there, IP is king. With that said, there's still a lot of talent here. You do have TT Games, which works on Lego games. You have Avalanche, they're working on the next Harry Potter game. You have NetherRealm behind Mortal Kombat. So there's some very talented studios here. And I think that that will be worth a lot of money for some different publishers out there. Who, though, is the big question? Of course, Imran Khan did list off several interested parties, including both Microsoft and Sony. So I know there's going to be a lot of discussion regarding all of that. But I will say that I'm a little skeptical of Microsoft trying to acquire another studio while also trying to acquire Activision Blizzard. I feel like as long as that buyout is going through regulations, they're going to kind of hold off on trying to acquire any more studios just to kind of make sure that gets through regulations. I think otherwise, then we might be having a very different story today about Crystal Dynamics. I mean, Crystal Dynamics is helping co-develop a first-party Xbox game, being Perfect Dark. And again, with that only selling for $300 million, I do kind of imagine that Microsoft has their hands tied a little bit when it comes to these studio acquisitions, or at least until the Activision Blizzard deal gets through regulations. Nonetheless, though, do not be surprised if we start to hear about some different Warner Brothers studios being picked up throughout 2022. On to our final topic of the day, though. It looks like a couple of big unannounced Nintendo games might release this holiday for the Switch. Now, both of these have been rumored quite a bit, but with this here, you can just kind of add more fuel to the fire, as Jeff Grubb seems to believe that Nintendo will release a Metroid Prime Remaster, as well as Zelda Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess for the Switch this year. Yeah, we've been hearing about these games for quite a while by this point, and you know what they always like to say, where there's smoke, there's fire. Maybe there's something to this after all. Jeff Grubb is a well-respected insider and a journalist for that matter, so let's just go and check out what he had to say on his video. He said that they want to have a Zelda game every year, and they have been holding on to this. Why wouldn't they just put it out this year? And if they don't put this out or some other Zelda thing this year, instead of just waiting for Breath of the Wild 2, I just will not understand. I think that this game, Wind Waker and Twilight Princess bundle, as much as it was a joke in the Megabit 64 video, I do believe it actually comes out in October. Now, on one side of the statement, it does sound like he's just kind of speculating here. He doesn't seem overly confident that they will release it this October, but what I found to be very interesting here is that he said that they've been holding on to this, which implies that Nintendo already has both Zelda Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess ready for the Nintendo Switch, which truthfully wouldn't be all that hard because these games did release on the Wii U. They can just simply port them over to the Switch. So that wouldn't necessarily be overly surprising, but it does sound like he's implying that they have this already ready to release, which we know for a fact that Nintendo likes to hold on to the games. We just saw them do that with Xenoblade 3, swapping that with Splatoon 3. So they could just kind of make up for the delay here of Breath of the Wild 2 by releasing one or both of these games, being Twilight Princess HD and Wind Waker HD. Jeff Grubb wasn't quite done there, though, as he also continued on to say that I think we get Metroid Prime 1 Remaster in November, and then I think we get Advance Wars 1+2 in December. Now, obviously, earlier this year, Nintendo decided that they were going to go ahead and delay Advance Wars because of some real-life issues, and we haven't really heard much from that game since, but here it does seem like Jeff Grubb believes that it will release sometime this year, maybe this December, which I think would kind of make sense. It was originally supposed to release December of last year in 2021, so they could peg that right into December. I could definitely see that. But the more interesting part here would be that Metroid Prime 1 Remaster. We have heard a lot about this game from multiple insiders by this point. We still have not gotten a confirmation on whether or not this game actually truly does exist, and this isn't a confirmation either. But at the same time, you can just kind of add Jeff Grubb to the list on another insider that is claiming that a Metroid Prime 1 Remaster is indeed in development and could release as early as 2022. And if this game does truly exist, more than likely we will get an official announcement here in the next couple of months. Now, I keep talking about this, but we do have the Xbox Bethesda showcase next month on June 12th. And something that Jeff Keighley mentioned is that the Summer Game Fest will take place in a singular month of the year. Now, assuming that the Xbox event is a part of Summer Game Fest, then that means some other big publishers might have an event in June as well, and that does include maybe a new Nintendo Direct. So hopefully we will get some confirmation on this stuff sometime here soon. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day, though, and something that I do every single month is ask you all what game you all are most looking forward to. So here I did ask you all what game releasing in May are you most looking forward to? And I was pretty happy with the results here, as Trek to Yomi, an independent game, actually came out in first place with 37% of the votes. Then you have Sniper Elite 5 at 28%. And then here at third, you have Other at 16%. A lot of you all are very much looking forward to Evil Dead the game. Then below that, you have Vampire Masquerade Swan Song at 12%. And then last but not least, Salt and Sacrifice at 8%. I'm actually quite looking forward to that one, as the first game was actually really good. So I'm hoping that they learned from the first and make the second one even better. But yeah, first place here was Trek to Yomi, which was very nice to see, as I think that this looks like a very impressive independent style of game. It's got a nice setting and art style to it. You play as a samurai. It apparently is also pretty cinematic overall, and it looks very gory, to say the least. I do have some high hopes that this one will end up being a pretty good game, and the cool thing about this one is that it's going to release on pretty much all platforms, including PlayStation, Xbox, PC, and it's also going to be launching directly into Xbox Game Pass. It will release on May 5th, so it's actually looking like a pretty good start for the month of May. There's not necessarily a big blockbuster title releasing in the month of May, but with games like Trek to Yomi, Soul of Sacrifice, and a few others, there still seems to be a few interesting titles releasing here and there. Anyways, though, if you like the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.